once again to discuss things.
That actually reminds me of one of my favorite Dimitri Martin jokes, where he's like, you can tell a lot about what situation you're in a pool depending on what you're wearing. Clothes, oh no. Naked, clothes, oh no. Bathing suit, okay. Naked, we'll see.
We'll see. Alright, you ready?
Yep.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Partu, aka Ian Harrington. Joining me today is Steve _Baxi. Hello, Steve.
Hello, underscore.
Hi. So we are continuing Geeky Gentleman Comedy Month. We are continuing Geeky Gentleman character discussions. And who's funnier than the Joker?
Depends on whether or not you live.
Yep, right? So this kind of came to me just out of the blue, and I really like this pick, and I'm really excited for this video. So I figured the best place to start is just this really broad question. Is the Joker funny?
Yes, are you kidding? He's if he's not funny, you're not writing him correctly.
Exactly. Cough, cough, Scott Snyder.
Exactly.
Yeah, so no, I love the Joker. He is my favorite DC character, my favorite comic book character. And that changes so often, but like I always kind of like say, oh, this is one of my favorite characters, and then I'm like, oh wait, but what about the Joker? Oh, of course the Joker is still the top. But like he's like so far above that he doesn't even count for me.
I mean, that's fair.
You know, the Joker is something that got me into comic books, something that I found just endlessly fascinating. I love Joker stories. Even when they're bad, they're still some of the best stuff, unless you're just writing him really, really poorly. Cough, Scott Snyder.
Okay, do you mind, because I think it might be a fun way to start this conversation, is just go favorite Joker story of all time.
I'm not going to say The Killing Joke, because that's too obvious. I'm going to say Joker's Last Laugh.
But it's actually The Killing Joke,
It's
right?
actually The Killing
For
Joke.
you?
Yeah.
Okay, so for you it's Killing Joke. For me it's War of Jokes and Riddles.
That's a good one too. I wouldn't really qualify it though. At least for me, the reason it wouldn't qualify is because he's so out of character through the majority of that.
That's kind of why I love it though. I feel like the Joker's everything about that story is a perfect Joker story, except Joker can't enjoy it, and I feel like that's fascinating.
Yeah, my thinking is though, for me, if I'm gonna say this is my favorite Joker story, and I want to be able to hand it to somebody who has no real idea about the character other than Batman fights him, you know? And I don't think that War of Jokes and Riddles works as well to someone without a ton of experience, in the same way that Joker's Last Laugh and Killing Joke do.
That's fair. That story's gotten to this point with me where I'm like, so many of my favorite Joker moments are just that book at this point. I fucking love that book.
That's cool. That's totally fair. It is really, really good. Yeah.
And then my number 2 pick would be another Joker story though that you probably couldn't hand to most people, which is Batman 663.
Yeah. See, I like that one a lot too, and I think it's doing a lot of really interesting things with the character. But it's such a subversion that depends on a world, like a 70-year history view of the character. You know?
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. Like, I think it's a really, really good Joker story, and I could maybe put it in, like, I've been thinking about doing a top 10 Joker stories video for the longest time. I could maybe see putting it on there, but as far as favorite, I don't know, man. There's, like, you and I have talked about this before, where you don't like when someone says, hey, I want to get into comics, which I read, and people go, oh, The Killing Joke or Dark Knight Returns. I got into comics reading The Killing Joke and Dark Knight Returns, and so there's something really, really powerful about not knowing much about a character and then reading something that's just stands on its own well enough and just really does a great job representing that character.
I mean, that's fair. My issue with having those be your first stories is reading comics and reading those graphic novels designed to be graphic novels are two different experiences.
That's
so
fair.
Like, reading The Dark Knight Returns is not what reading a Batman comic month to month is like at all.
Yeah. No, so but to get more into the character of the Joker, I just really like the the way in which he functions as this kind of ultimate societal fear that we've slowly been realizing more and more over time. Like when you talk about villains, they kind of build and serve. The best villains serve as a reflection of their hero. Batman is this like self-made, this force of sheer will and trauma cobbled together. And the Joker is the exact same thing, but in the opposite direction. And he's everything that you don't want in a society. He is evil not because he wants anything from it, but to hurt people. And that's just endlessly scary to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Alfred summarizes it really well in Dark Knight, where he says he just wants to watch the world burn. Like, there really is nothing more than that.
Yeah, and that's... Like, I was talking to someone and they're like, oh, that's such a lazy motivation for a villain. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, I don't know how to communicate with you if that's how you feel. Like,
well, okay, to be fair, that's lazy everywhere else, right? Because that's kind of the problem with Michael Myers as a concept at a certain point. It's like he's just a force of nature and it's boring. But with the Joker, you establish that his complete force of nature, no rhyme, no reason attack is in a universe where no one else operates that way. And that's why it's terrifying.
Yeah, every other villain has like this tragic backstory as to why they are the way they are. And like their whole gimmick is like their entire life was leading up to that, right? Like Jake and I did Flash Book 4, which you're not going to see yet, but that has the rogue profile on Mirror Master. And that breaks down like his character's origin and everything for the Scottish Mirror Master. And like his whole life he'd been looking into glass, looking at his reflection and seeing something just slightly off. And then of course he becomes Mirror Master. And so it's this really nicely tied up bow that a lot of characters exist like that in the DC universe. The Joker, like, I love that the Joker doesn't have a proper origin. The Joker is whatever you think he could be. If he was always evil, that's just as scary as if he were, like, some kind of good person that did have just that one bad day and everything went wrong and he decided to just bring the rest of the world down with him.
Yeah.
And I love those ideas of the character. Now, you and I were talking, it was in the episode on criminal justice, where you mentioned that the Joker, like, we've done all these interesting things with him, but he is still, end of the day, the poster child for crazy people are violent.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the interesting things that we do with him, in particular to the he's crazy side of things. I've been talking a lot. You start us off on that.
So what do you mean exactly?
Well, like, what do you think is done with the gimmick of he's a crazy person that allows for interesting storytelling, ignoring the problematic portrayal of the mentally ill?
Well, I think Laughing Fish is a really good example. Because he's got no, like, logic or reason, he just does things, and you can't even really mete out what the purpose of this is, but it works because it's so funny and so menacing. Laughing Fish is a good example. I think a better example is the episode of The Batman where he becomes Batman.
That'd be on my list of top 10 Joker stories.
I agree, Laughing Bat. In that story, like, why is he dressing up as Batman? I don't know. What does he hope to get out of this? I don't know.
It's funny.
It's really funny. Like, when there's a bunch of little girls playing hopscotch, and then Joker's just like, graffiti.
It's a very serious
There's another great moment where he kills the mayor's wife, or like Joker poisons her or whatever, and he's like, 11 items in a 10-item checkout line. She had it coming.
And like the thing I like so much about that episode is it is such a parody of the general consensus of who Batman is, where it's like he calls people like scum. Like that's just so it is so him just like going neener and like flipping his nose up at Batman, and it's so perfect. And then there's
there's no reasoning with that, and it's hysterical.
It is. I'm holding my copy of The Killing Joke, and the thing I like about the humor associated with the Joker is when it's also used in just the darkest way, where he's like doing something awful and you're laughing, and then you realize that you're laughing at something awful, and then you feel bad but you don't stop laughing. So like the infamous scene where Barbara Gordon is shot and Joker's walking around the Gordon's apartment afterwards, like just with these really harsh words. Mind you, I can't say much for the volume's condition. I mean, there's a hole in the jacket and the spine appears to be damaged. Frankly, she won't be walking off the shelves in that state of repair. In fact, the idea of her walking anywhere seems increasingly remote. But then, that's always the problem with softbacks. God, these literary discussions are so dry. That's just really messed up.
That's really fucked up.
It is.
No, it's really fucked up.
It so is, but it's underlyingly funny. Like,
no, I agree. And I mean, sometimes it's just, like I said, War of Joke Terminals I love partly because it has some of my favorite Joker moments. The opening to the second issue, I think, where Joker walks into a house and the narration's like, these two people lived here, bang, bang. And then they said, and their 3 children, and then bang, bang, bang.
Yep. Like
it's so funny.
It's pretty twisted. The Batman also had another, like I was surprised they got away with this on the Batman, but like he's watching TV and he's just got popcorn and he's laughing his ass off and he goes, "Oh my, physical comedy is truly an art." And then you just hear a voice from the TV say, "We'll be back with When Animals Attack Volume 3 after these messages." Like, that's so fucked up and really funny. So, like, Joker does these things with a dark sense of humor that's really, really just... It makes you question yourself, and it feeds into... Yes, the idea that the Joker's crazy, so he's violent, is insulting to people with mental illness, but there's this underlying thing of the way in which we exist, and whether the way in which we exist in this society, and whether or not this is okay is a completely separate discussion, but the underlying fact that people fear going crazy, it does exist, right? People fear becoming mentally ill, or having to deal with a mentally ill person. So to have a character that personifies either you could go crazy or one day you'd have to deal with someone this crazy, and he dresses it up and it's so theatrical and ridiculous, is this really, really interesting double-edged sword to me. And I love it for that.
Yeah. I mean, theatricality in the Joker is just... Every time the Joker shows up, it is an event at this point. Mm-hmm. It didn't used to be that way, but I kind of, in some ways, I kind of like that the Joker doesn't show up unless he has a stage.
Yeah, I do miss my just, one-off Joker stories, but at the same time, he's become so dangerous that you kind of need to have a bigger deal about it now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just publish a Joker story anymore.
Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate, just because it means that you're reading Joker stories further and further apart, but at the same time, at least like they tend to have more thought put into them. Whether or not they're any good is a different issue.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, there's a whole conversation to be had about that, but...
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about Scott Snyder or Endgame other than just throw shade at it, to be honest.
Fair.
I read, what was it, like, apparently, spoilers, in Metal, the last issue is Batman and the Joker teaming up to fight the Batman who laughs, and I just thought right back to the scene from Batman R.I.P. where he's like, I bet you think this is the part where you team up with your longtime foe to take out the new bad guy. Well, that's not gonna happen. It's just immediately where I went. I'm like, one of these two was written by a really good Joker writer, the other wasn't. So like that's really interesting, though, the way in which Joker's theatricality has kind of become very meta. And has extended to whether or not he'll show up in books now. what do you think about the idea that he represents a fear of mental illness that exists in society, whether or not that's okay?
I mean, I think it's twofold. It's that, one, people are afraid of the mentally ill, and Joker leans into that really heavily. But I think the other part of it is that mental illness is inherently dangerous, and the Joker leans into that too, where people aren't necessarily afraid of going mentally ill as much as they're afraid of, if they're mentally ill, we can't do anything about it, and that's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I think there's also the interesting thing that Joker is the king of the madhouse, right? Like,
Yeah.
no treatment works on him. I remember I was talking to Alfie. We did a video on Harley Quinn at one point, and I mentioned that, like, there should be a story where Jeremiah Arkham takes new doctors and introduces them in this order to Strange, Crane, and then Harley Quinn, and says, don't make me put you behind one of these cells. And I think it's really interesting because, depending on the continuity, Joker pulls Strange in, and Joker always pulls Harley Quinn in.
Yeah.
So, like, Crane's the only outlier, but I think it's really interesting that all these people try to treat him, and he just makes them worse. He just ruins them and makes them just like him, and kind of he infects others with the crazy, if you will, but there's no treatment for him. And I kind of like, big surprise here, I like Grant Morrison's theorizing to explain why that is. It's because,
he's super sane.
Yeah, because the Joker isn't actually crazy. He's just vindictive as fuck and super sane.
Yeah.
I really, really like that.
No, I agree with that absolutely. I like the idea that the Joker's got kind of an adaptive personality that goes with that he's not ill in any sort of way. He's just so good at, like, redistributing his brain to run around his traumas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, like, no one can really get this except for, Dr. Ruth. No one can really get this, and so they're kind of just left not sure what to do with him. Meanwhile, he kind of becomes this infectious influence on the rest of the inmates. I'm a big fan of the idea that Joker makes the inmates continue to be inmates, continue to commit crimes and stuff. I love... Did you ever read the Joker's Asylum series that they did?
Yeah.
Those were hit and miss, but there was a really good one with Killer Croc, where, Croc goes through this whole thing, and he gets out of Arkham, and he finds people that are actually treating him like a person for a while, but then they turn him into their muscle, and he realizes he just got used, and then he ends up back in Arkham after that whole thing gets busted. And it just ends with Joker laughing at him, and he says something to the effect of, "You thought that someone could love you?" And it's just Killer Croc sitting in his cell basically crying because the Joker's making fun of him. And
that's fucked up.
That is so fucked up that it's like, of course he's going to go out and just commit crimes again. This is what he has to return to. It's just this horrifically infectious influence. And that's really, really interesting. And I think the Joker does that for a lot of people, besides just making the doctors go crazy. I like the, we were talking about it, I like Dark Knight, where he makes Two-Face in multiple ways, but he really gives Harvey the motivation to become Two-Face. It's all over the place. Joker kind of creates Batman's rogues gallery, or at least helps fill it out.
Well, and if not fills it out, he at the very least, like, reinforces a lot of them and doesn't allow anyone to get proper help.
Yeah, and he also makes them, like, for the ones that he's not directly creating himself by messing with people, he's also influencing others. Again, to go back to Dark Knight, I'm not a madman, I'm just ahead of the curve. I really love that line, and it was too bad that Rises didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, Heath Ledger dying really screwed the pooch on all of that, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like, I really like a lot of the way that he is, not only, like, in the actions that he commits evil, but in the way in which he affects the world around Gotham. Like, he's actively making Gotham worse even when he's not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, he's, like we said earlier, he's a force of nature. No Man's Land's a really good example where everything's fucked up, so there's no reason for the Joker to show up, but the moment things start to look like they're going to be a little bit better, the Joker shows up.
Yeah, not counting the Azrael stuff, sure. That's unfortunate. Like, I remembered it that way, too, and then I reread it all recently, and, like, he keeps popping up in the Azrael stuff for some reason, and I don't know why, but, yeah, that was unfortunate.
No Man's Land's a weird comic, but
yeah.
Aside from that.
Yeah. The idea of no one else using him was pretty great, but Denny O'Neil had kind of become Batman God by that point, so I think they just let him do whatever he wanted just to be writing in the book.
Yeah, and then Azrael didn't even get its proper ending because Denny O'Neil almost died. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So to get back to the Joker, you've mentioned that War Jokes and Riddles is your favorite. Do you have a favorite version of the Joker, though? Like a particular portrayal or the way someone wrote him? Or is it just...
I mean, it's going to be cliche to say, but, like, Thin White Duke of Death all day. Grant Morrison.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I really like...
I mean, I don't think there's any version of the Joker that I think is as quite as punctuated as Thin White Duke of Death. I was rereading R.I.P. the other day, and I love that Grant Morrison's got this particular take where the Joker's lettering is never capitalized. There's just so much going on with that version of him. Grant Morrison's got my favorite Joker line of all time, where he's when he's talking about Batman, he's like, every time I try to think outside the box, he builds a bigger box around me.
Yeah.
The idea of that Joker is that the Joker is highly unpredictable, but that's what makes him predictable. And I love that sort of, like, Joker understands that he's caught in a sort of double bind between being completely at odds with everything Batman is and completely dangerous and unpredictable, but then sometimes just too easy.
I really like that version. It's hard not to say Killing Joke because it's just so warped and evil. But I'll go back to Joker's Last Laugh. I really like that story because it's just an event, a DC Universe event, all surrounded on the Joker just, going out in a blaze of glory. And then, of course, spoilers, the big reveal with it that he's actually not going to die.
Yeah.
Like, that's really good. And, again, he drags someone else down with him when he makes Nightwing kill him. I don't know how you feel about that, given that you're a big Dick Grayson fan, but I fucking love that moment. He's like the Emperor from, like, Return of the Jedi right there, and it's beautiful.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that Dick would go down that far, but it is fascinating.
I mean, within the circumstances, I think it's believable. Like, he thought Tim was dead because of the Joker. The Joker's sitting there egging him on, making fun of him. He's literally lit the entire world on fire by that point in the book. And he's Dixon. I think Dick's in the mind space that Joker's gonna die anyway. So that's really good. I don't much care for Chuck Dixon as a person, but Chuck Dixon writes the Joker pretty well too.
He's great. Yeah,
there's this great Devil's Advocate has a lot of great scenes where, like, he's on death row. And he's confessing to a priest, and you just, like, all of a sudden you hear the priest just yelling, like, for help and for someone to come help him, and they think that the Joker's killing the priest, so the guards rush in there, ready to take him on. The Joker's just sitting there, and the guys are like, "What did he do? What did he do?" "He's confessing!" It's just like, so there's like, and then the screaming just lasted all night. That was the last time I used crushed glass. Fuck! Like, that's just a really good scene. And again, it's so fucked, but it's so funny. Paul Dini was a guy who I didn't really think... I used to not think that Paul Dini knew how to write the Joker until I read Dark Knight. And then I think Paul Dini is too afraid to write the Joker right, but he knows how to do it.
Have you read Sleigh Ride?
Yes. I did a
Okay, yeah,
motion
Sleigh
comic
Ride's a
for
Paul
Sleigh
Dini
Ride.
Joker story that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good. My underlying thing, the problem I often have with Paul Dini's version of the Joker, whether it be animated series or times he's popped up in the comics, is the Joker isn't buying what he's selling. Like, it's all an act. He doesn't actually believe that life is a joke and death is the punchline, because whenever his life is threatened, as far as Paul Dini writes him, he chickens out. Like, I think of Joker's Favor from Batman the Animated Series, where he thinks a bomb's about to go off and he runs to Batman for help. That I don't like. But then I read Paul Dini's Dark Knight, a True Batman story, and he wrote the Joker right, as this voice in the back of your head that is taking every conceivable situation, making it the worst case scenario, and then telling you why you're such a shitty person. And that is how you write the Joker. And then laughing at you for all of that. That's how you write the Joker. So I think that Paul Dini can write the Joker. He's just too afraid to do it.
That's fair. Paul Dini is one of those writers where I feel like he's never... I don't want to say he's overrated, but I kind of feel like he's overrated, where I feel like anything good he did stems more from the animated series than anything else.
I don't know.
Because I like Dark Knight. I think that's a good story, but I feel like that's an outlier in his career because it's so personal.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the Arkham games are pretty good, the first two. And he wrote those.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's just so animated series about them.
Yeah, maybe. He definitely has a good crew of friends behind him, because Tim worked on the Arkham games a little bit too, didn't he?
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's a bad writer. I can never get into Paul Dini stuff as, like, serious Batman for some reason.
I think that's fair. He's a strong Batman writer. I don't think he's a great Batman writer. I wouldn't put him in the same camp as, like, O'Neill or Morrison. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. That's fair. He's fine. He writes good popcorn Batman stories.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then when he's got the right team behind him, he can write really well, too.
Yeah. I mean, Heart of Hush is still great, but still.
Yeah. So then there's, like, Paul Dini, I think, can write the Joker. He's just afraid to. And I'm really curious to see what King's going to be doing in the upcoming, DC Nation number 0 or whatever. Because he's been talking about how he was scared of the Joker while he was writing him, and now he's more scared now that he's started to see the art. And that's really fascinating to me.
No, and King's got a fantastic voice for Joker already.
Yeah, and again, like, I really like War of Jokes and Riddles, but the point of Joker in that is he is very out of character, and I want to see King write the Joker in character.
Well, and also the Ace story that he wrote, where, like, Joker's not in that story, but the whole point of that story is Joker broke this dog to the point where he devoured all the other dogs.
Yep.
Such an Ace high, like, that's such a Joker thing.
Yeah, that is so a Joker thing, and it's terrifying. And, like, God, it's so good. White Knight is something else that's coming out right now. It's got one issue left, and I've been up and down on it. Right now, one issue left. I'm pretty happy with it. I like that. I
really like it, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that the Joker is the voice in the back of Jack Napier's head. That's pretty good. Favorite version of the Joker on screen, whether TV show, movie?
That isn't Heath Ledger?
You can say Heath Ledger. I think, now that we've had live action Jokers after him, it's acceptable.
I feel like Heath Ledger's a weird answer because I think Heath Ledger's... There's a video, Movies with Mikey, that talks about The Dark Knight, and he makes the argument that Heath Ledger is the best actor and the best performance to ever win Best Supporting Actor. And I'm really into that extreme idea right now. So I want to say Heath Ledger, but a less cliche answer for me might be... Under the Red Hood?
Okay. All right.
I really like him Under the Red Hood. I think he's hysterical in that.
John DiMaggio's pretty good in that. There's no lie. Oh, the family's back together. Let's get pictures.
And the first clip we got of him, because everyone was really excited for his Joker voice, but the first clip of what we got of him is when he's leaving, beating the shit out of Jason Todd, and he's acting like a dad. He's like, "All right, kiddo, I've got to go. Remember to do your homework and be in bed by 9."
Yep, that's really good too.
And then he just ends it with that menacing, "And please tell the big man I said hello."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's really good. I'm going to... I'm also not going to say Heath Ledger, but I'm going to just inch ever so closely to it. I'm going to say Scott McClure in the Joker blogs.
Okay.
I loved the Joker blogs Season 1. Season 2, whenever it's actually going to happen, finally, 5 years later, it's been pretty good as well. But Season 1 of the Joker blogs is as over-the-top and fan film ambition-y as it gets. God, it's like he's taking all the things I really loved about Heath Ledger's Joker and then adding the comedy from the books. And it's just such a beautiful thing to watch.
I agree.
I cannot believe how much I like even from, I'm pretty sure it's episode 1 or 2 where he's talking to her and he goes, "Do you think I'm crazy? I don't think a sane person would burn a fortune." He's like, No. I only burned my half of the money. Problem was, my half was on the bottom. I didn't think that one through. Like, God, that is funny.
That's fantastic. I actually do really like that.
Yeah, so Scott McClure is, he played and wrote the Joker in that, so it's really special stuff. And so that was something great. The Joker blogs, for those that don't know, I do the fan film reviews on this show, and the Joker blogs is what made me fall in love with fan films. So I can't not love that, even if they've been pretty squirrely the last couple of years. So, all right, let's go ahead and. Do you have anything else you want to bring up about the Joker?
Not particularly. I will say I love, because there's a few different ways to draw the Joker. As long as he's got a purple suit, I'm happy.
All right. Yeah, that's actually worth talking about. I really like the long chin, and maybe that's just Brian Boland, but damn, that long chin is really good.
The long chin is good. The other thing that Michael Yannin has kind of made me fall in love with after he started drawing the Joker is his eyes need to pop out a little bit, just ever so slightly, and that's just the most horrifying thing.
Yeah, I agree. This is neither here nor there, but I always love it when artists do it. When they do stuff with the Joker's hair that's just weird. I talked about Devil's Advocate earlier. When he gets his head shaved in that, and then it slowly starts to grow, his hair slowly starts to grow back as stubble, but it's green stubble. I really like that. I'm waiting for someone to give me a Joker who's been locked up in Arkham for an extended period of time and has grown a green beard. I need that in my life.
Well, and I mean, Heath Ledger's is another good example of this, but then also John DiMaggio's Joker's got really weird hair, and the Batman Joker's got really weird hair.
See, those are, Ledger and Batman are kind of outliers. I still don't love the Joker's design in the Batman. Ledger,
I wish they'd lean into it more.
Yeah, Ledger's works better for me just because it's part of the theatricality and the whole punk rock look. But I really like the Joker to be very presentable, very, very refined kind of look, because it's so counter to everything that Batman's going for, where he's very elemental and scary. So I prefer the more refined man about town kind of portrayal of him.
Yeah.
That being said, more Joker straitjacket art. I love Joker in a straitjacket. I
agree.
Just in anything. The only thing better than Joker in a straitjacket is Batman in a straitjacket. So I think that's where I'm going to leave this one. Okay. Recommended stories that we haven't already talked about.
That we haven't already talked about?
Yeah. I'm going to pull a really, really weird one. I don't remember the exact issue. I think it's Brave and the Bold number 31, but it's a crossover between Joker and the Atom. It came out in like 2009, 2010. And that's a pretty good one. It does do more of a solid Joker origin, but what it's doing is still really interesting. God damn it, why'd you have to bring up the Batman? Because that would have been another sneaky one. Oh, Brave and the Bold, when he and Batman team up with the whole, basically Owlman from the other universe.
Oh, at the end of season 1?
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's another good one.
I love that voice actor for the Joker, too.
Yeah, he does it so well. And I like his design in that one, too, because if he turns his head just right, the hair becomes devil horns, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then final recommendation for me, it's not genius or anything, but there's something to Batman Beyond Return of the Joker that's always got me.
Shit, you just stole mine.
Yes!
It's gonna say Return of the Joker. I fucking love Return of the Joker.
Yeah, it's not genius, but there's something to it that's just great to watch.
I love Return of the Joker. Fine, you could have that one too. Batman number 1. I think it's a cliche answer, but it's still a really good answer. I love that story. I particularly in that sort of, he's not psychotic. He just keeps doing dark things, and it kind of makes him laugh here and there. I think that's super unsettling.
Okay.
What else is there? Arkham Asylum. Arkham Asylum is fantastic.
Which one are we talking here?
The comic, the Grant Morrison
Okay,
comic.
Serious House, Serious Earth. All right.
Yes. 5 Ways Revenge. Joker's 5 Ways Revenge is another really brilliant one that kind of set in stone the whole Batman and Joker are two opposites of the same coin thing.
Mm-hmm. You're at 3.
I want to think of one more though.
Okay.
One more good one. It's not brilliant, but I like Going Sane.
Okay, that's an interesting one. That Scott Snyder also ripped off.
Yeah.
All right, since you threw out one more, I'll throw out another one too. It's just for the wacky silliness of it, and anything where Joker's just aping Batman's act is always really fun to me. So I'm gonna go with Joker's Utility Belt. That is in all the greatest Joker stories ever told collections, and it deserves to be. It's a pretty clever one.
It is.
All right.
It is.
Well, that'll do it for this episode, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. Steve, who will we be talking about next time?
All right, next time for a comedy character, let's talk about... I'm trying to think of a good comic relief sort of character.
If you're really...
Have you started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine or no?
No, I haven't. Someone suggested something on Twitter if you want to go to this wheelhouse for stuff. Someone was saying you should probably talk about some of Jim Carrey's characters. So there's a whole wheelhouse if you're interested.
I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily feel like talking about a bunch of Jim Carrey.
Okay, that's fair.
Let's talk about Austin Powers.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I just rewatched the movies a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so did I. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, Austin Powers it is. Sorry, I think it was Carl who suggested Jim Carrey. Sorry, we didn't get to it. I came up with the Joker. I was thinking, which Ace Ventura, or which Jim Carrey character do I want to talk about? Ace Ventura? Stanley Ipkiss? No, I want to talk about the Joker.
To be fair, I will say, Jim Carrey's not a bad suggestion. My problem with Jim Carrey's suggestion is that all I'll do is, quote random movies and not talk about whatever character we're talking about.
That's fair. All right. So next time we will talk about Austin Powers. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm a victim of circumstance.
And I am the Exile.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.